People are not that interested in female action stars.
Source? You just gonna say shit like that? Oh, the Marvels flop. That means they should never ever make a female-led action movie ever, right? That's your argument? That's it? Seems pretty bad, because, I mean, how many action movies starring men have flopped, Matt? It seems like there's probably a lot of those. Does that mean the audience doesn't want action movies starring men? Because, I mean, if one flops, that means nobody wants to see that, right? That's your logic here. The Marvels might not have been the best film, but it's far better than Captain Marvel. I think Captain Marvel gets better every time I watch it. I like Captain Marvel. Like, I used to think it was lower end MCU. Now I'm thinking more like mid-tier. Like, it's not bad at all. They do a decent job in that movie. I have minor issues, but, like, it's not a bad movie. Like, every time I watch it, it's like, this is decent. I think The Marvels is sloppier. And yeah, as you might be able to tell from the title of this stream, and if you've seen the podcast or the video I clipped from the podcast, I'm not a huge fan of The Marvels. It didn't thrill me. It has its issues. In fact, if I like to briefly break down why I strongly suspect the issues are, I suspect it's a strike issue. I suspect that they didn't get a chance to do reshoots or anything like that. So, like, they had, like, kind of like the rough, like, first edit of the movie, and they kind of just had to roll with what they had. Despite all the delays and stuff like that, I feel like there's a little bit smoothing over that need done still with that movie, and it wasn't able to get done. But it's not the worst movie ever. And I think what's interesting is the number of, frankly, you know, right-wing grifters that we usually cover, chuds, that are just screaming that it's like women being an issue and people don't want to see women as superheroes or some shit. And yeah, that's something I really want to address, because that's the dumbest thing ever. Well, I mean, the most obvious counter argument I've brought before: Wonder Woman is the most famous superhero, or one of the most famous superheroes in the world. Everybody knows who Wonder Woman is. She's carried her own title for decades and decades and decades. Arguing that women can't carry a comic book franchise is the dumbest thing ever. Let's actually look over some of the coverage of the Marvels, because I went into this. I actually had like a very specific videos I wanted to cover, because now that I've seen it, I actually want to cover reviews of it. Because like a lot of the arguments are really bad. Like I'm sure if I went to like actual movie reviewers, I'd see a lot of arguments that I would have against the movie. But, like, obviously, like, the Chudosphere is doing really dumb shit, talking about, like, women starring in the role being the issue and shit. So, I thought it'd be fun to go over that. And, of course, I think it's fun to start with one of the most famous YouTube movie reviewers. Movie scientist. Pure. Well, I didn't advertise this one because it came up last minute. But I was like, oh, he did a video on it. Let's cover it. Because, I mean, this guy is disgusting. And he's going to have bad takes when he covers media. So, we're going to go over Matt Walsh's video on the Marvels. And he's going to give his expert box office analysis on why the Marvels flopped. Because I'm sure if someone knows why the Marvels flopped, it would be Matt fucking Walsh. Mr. I'm going to go into my car and complain about how underage women should be getting married and having kids. Yeah. Cool.
The world can be a bleak place and getting bleaker by the day, which is why it's all the more important to celebrate the good news when it comes. Rejoice in the victories. Which brings us to this past weekend and the opening of the latest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a phrase that I prefer not to use because the universe itself is vast and varied and fascinating, but the Marvel Universe, on the other hand, is repetitive and dull and tedious and pointless not really a universe at all, it turns out. It's just a series of films where each film exists only to set up the next film, which exists to set up the next one, and the whole thing altogether primarily exists to sell merchandise.
Well, again, I guess I covered this before, but, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Nobody's making you watch it. Nobody's making you talk about it. Well, somebody might be making you talk about it, but let's see.
The only similarity between the actual universe and the Marvel universe is that the actual universe has lots of black holes, and the Marvel universe is a black hole. It is a giant gaping vacuum that has expanded by consuming the rest of the movie industry, so that at this point in 2023, nobody in the movie industry knows how to make a movie unless it involves people in rubber suits kicking each other.
But what made Marvel special is that it did a really good job actually doing a whole bunch of superheroes, even less known superheroes, and kind of putting them in the same universe, which is something that never was done before. And then blaming other movies for wanting to do the same thing. I mean, sure, they want to make money, but like Marvel just did it really well, and so other movie studios want to make money, and they're doing it very poorly. Do we blame Star Wars for all the shitty Star Wars knockoffs that came out after that movie was released? And if you don't know about that, just Google some shitty Star Wars knockoffs that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. They're all over the place. They're shit.
All that to say, the latest Marvel movie, creatively titled The Marvels, was a massive, humiliating flop. And thank God for that.
Did he do a video on Shazam 2? Because fun fact, yes, Marvel's did not do well. It is not doing well. It actually suffered really bad in its second weekend. Shazam 2 bombed a whole hell of a lot harder. A lot harder. And it's also worth noting, even though it had a smaller budget, Hunger Games, the new Hunger Games, is pretty much doing just under what the Marvels was doing. Which is still, like, even though it has a lot smaller budget and the franchise isn't as big, it's still well below franchise expectations. So it largely looks like box office underperformance, probably largely due to the strikes, people not being able to promote this stuff properly. That would be the biggest contender. I mean, we also have the issue of streaming. There's so many factors that as to why these movies are underperforming right now, massively. And yes, Terror on the Prairie was, Geek Prime is correct. Terror on the Prairie, box office smash hit, made over $800 in its opening weekend. Just absolutely crushing all box office expectations to make over $13,000 in its entire domestic run. Just fucking destroying, this conversation. I mean, what did the Marvels make in its opening weekend? 47 million? Fucking bomb. What a bomb.
We should also note, as this is likely not a coincidental factor, that the film is a female-led girl power fest starring a teen.
Girl power fest. Okay, so it is a female-led superhero movie. I don't recall that ever actually being brought up. Yes, 3 women are, they get entangled and they start switching spots, and that's why they kind of become a team. I don't recall that ever being a point in the movie where it's like women power fights. No, it's just 3 characters that happen to be women. That's it.
Team of women superheroes headlined by feminist actor Brie Larson.
Feminist actor Brie Larson. You can't just say actor. You gotta say feminist actor Brie Larson, because you know your audience is totally drinking up those Brie Larson videos, right?
The abysmal numbers show just how thoroughly uninterested audiences seem to be in this kind of content. The Marvels opened with a $47 million weekend, which is a number that, might seem high, given that $47 million would be enough to feed 9,000 African villages for 100 years or something. But in terms of Marvel movies, it is a catastrophic failure. Easily the worst opening weekend in the history of the Marvel franchise generally. And made all the worse when you compare the box office receipts to the production budget. Reportedly, the Marvels cost something like $275 million to make.
So he's actually hitting on an issue here. I'm sure this won't be the driving force of his video, but like his issue, The issue is the ballooning budgets. They need to bring
and that's just the production budget.
They need to bring the budgets under control. Desperately.
Of the film. It doesn't count the many millions spent on marketing. Yet just to recover the production budget, the Marvels would have to earn somewhere just south of $500 million at a minimum. And based on the opening performance, it is extremely unlikely that that will happen. The film is doomed to go down as yet another recent big-budget Hollywood flop. In fact, the performance has been so bad that according to the Hollywood Reporter, it has Marvel Studios rethinking their whole strategy for making and releasing films. Watch.
They are doing some retooling, lots of delays done because of the strikes. Are you going to ignore that? Like, only Deadpool 3 is going forward. We'll have to see how it turns out. But, like, yeah, lots of stuff got postponed with the strikes going on. And they are doing some retooling, largely because it sounds like they might be working out a way to get rid of Jonathan Majors, which I don't know. Like, I think it's kind of an overreaction if that's their main goal, because, like, you can just recast him. It's not that big a deal. But let's see what he seems to be setting this up to be entirely because of the Marvels. And really? Like, all this stuff was announced before the Marvels. What are you talking about?
This isn't the first warning sign that something's been amiss within Marvel in terms of quality control, as Kevin Feige's team has been in overdrive producing shows for streaming. Features Eternals and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania also received B cinema scores, while audiences began complaining about keeping up with an increasing number of shows on Disney Plus to understand the overarching MCU story.
And that was something brought up in the Variety article, but they ignore all context. So the Variety article specifically said, Disney called Marvel in. They're like, we're launching a Disney Plus service. We want Marvel content on it nonstop. Marvel's our biggest seller. We want Marvel on it every week. We want like a Marvel show on there every week in between the big movies. And yeah, it was too much. And Kevin Feige couldn't keep up with it because how could he keep up with it? And it sounds like he just put too much on his plate and he got overloaded. And honestly, I think it was a bad call because yeah, it does feel a bit oversaturated with Marvel, even though the quality's been, I think, it's kind of Marvel quality. Consistently Marvel quality. And I want to state, consistently Marvel quality means essentially you got meh and a couple bangers. Like, they don't, like I like to say, they don't shit the bed ever. But, a lot of meh and a lot of bangers. That's pretty much Marvel quality. And I think they're able to keep that consistent, but God, yeah, there was just so much of it in the past couple of years. It was a bit much.
Behind the scenes, Marvel Studios and Disney were well aware.
Deadpool 3, I'd be shocked, gets canceled. Because to my understanding, that was one of the ones they rushed into production. Like, as soon as the actor strike was over, they're like, okay, let's get Deadpool 3 shooting.
The Marvels was in trouble before it hit the big...
And then, actually, yeah, to my understanding, a lot of the retooling is because of the strikes, but a lot of it is also because of the writers' rooms and stuff like that now have to be installed because of the strikes. So yeah, a lot of the reasons this stuff's getting rescheduled is the strikes.
Big screen. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter there was also a recognition that Feige and his team needed time to take stock of their theatrical tentpoles. On November 8th, Bob Iger said on an earnings call that Disney's movie empire is, quote, lost focus because of an emphasis on quantity over quality in the rush to feed...
Probably. I mean, yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think the quality's been terrible, but yeah, there's definitely been probably too much.
Disney Plus under the Bob Chapek regime, though it was Iger himself who initiated this push before Chapek's reign. Sources say Feige and his team felt this mandate keenly to the detriment of Marvel's movies. The next day, Marvel and Disney revealed they were scaling back the number of superhero films they will release in 2024 from 3 to just 1.
Well, if I could offer some solace to audiences, you don't need to keep track of the overarching Marvel story because there is no story. You're watching a series of extended toy commercials. And the narrative is very much a secondary concern if it ranks even that high, which I don't think it does.
You do know, the movies are the biggest things they sell, right, Matt? Yeah, I mean, they sell toys too, but honestly, if you go to a toy store, there's plenty of Marvel toys, but not every movie gets its own toy set. You get Spider-Man toys for sure. But like, not necessarily. It's primarily the movies, Matt.
Does. But this leads to the question of why a redundant, lifeless, big budget.
Yes, I've heard of the Birdman. Did I try to remember. I might have done a stream with him like forever ago. It was a while ago. But yeah, I've heard of the Birdman.
But weirdly cheap-looking feminist superhero girl power movie would perform so poorly. Now, that's not a question that any sane person has to think very hard to answer. I just kind of answered it in the question itself. The question answers itself. The media isn't thinking very hard either. They've, of course, decided that...
Matt, what is the question that answers itself? Come on.
It must be sexism. So here's an article in...
Well, you know what? I don't think the reason it flopped was sexism, but I do think your guys' reaction to it is sexist.
The Stylist laying the groundwork for this excuse before the box office receipts were tallied. That's how you know, right, that a movie is good.
Okay, let's see receipts on that. Because if somebody said this movie bombed exclusively because of bigots like Matt Walsh, then I would say, yeah, that's wrong. But if the person just said bigots like Matt Walsh bashed the movie or something like that, then that'd be correct.
Good is that before it comes out, they're already telling you that if you don't watch it, you're a bigot.
Really? I need a source on that one, Matt. You don't watch it, you're a bigot. What? I like how you say just shit like that. You gotta have a source? Let's see. It seems like you're doing an edit to a clip. Let's see this clip.
Quote, fresh off the back of first reviews, fake takes about the film have sadly started to circulate on X, formerly Twitter, from people who have not yet seen the movie. This might sound familiar. The first trailer stirred the sexist trolls from their slumber, and after they review-bombed Captain Marvel, it was almost inevitable they would return to do the same for the sequel.
Okay, everything in that paragraph is absolutely true.
Within 2 days of its release, the teaser became the most disliked video on YouTube, with one user labeling it Captain Feminist and the Patriarchy Stone, which is great. It seems that the toxic underbelly of the comic book franchise is back on display as some misogynistic fans attempt to slander a brilliant film simply because it's led by 3 women.
Okay, so that doesn't say anything about, like, number one, I won't agree it's a brilliant film. That's the only thing I disagree with in that 2 paragraphs. Everything else is accurate. He doesn't, like, there's nothing there about, hey, you have to watch this or else you're a sexist, Matt. Because, I mean, that's what you said. But that's not what he said at all. He just said sexists are bashing this movie, which is 100% accurate. Just gonna point that out.
Slander. Yes, the toxic underbelly is slandering again. Gotta watch out.
Yeah. You know it, Matt. You know the drill. You're doing it right now.
Out for that toxic underbelly. And of course, this has to be the explanation. Why else wouldn't people flock to see a movie where a bunch of annoying women run around punching people?
Okay, he put it out on text. There was nothing about the box office on that move, what he just put up there, right? There was nothing about box office performance on here. This was just a person who liked the movie saying sexists are attacking it, which is 100% true. This is what I mean. Like, even though I wasn't a fan of the movie, like, these guys are just fucking wrong about it still. Like, even if we disagree that we aren't a fan of the movie, like, you guys are still fucking wrong.
Gotta watch out for that toxic underbelly. And of course, this has to be the explanation. Why else wouldn't people flock to see a movie where a bunch of annoying women run around punching people?
Annoying women run around punching people. Do I really have to dignify this? Matt, the fuck? Like, what's annoying about them? The fact that they have vaginas? Like, is that it? Are all these videos I'm gonna watch and all these arguments it's gonna break down to women with vaginas can't be superheroes? Or just people with vaginas can't be superheroes? I don't know. Like, the fuck? This is... What is this?
People. That's the conclusion shared by the director of the film, too, Nia DaCosta. As Breitbart reports, she was making these
Oh, as Breitbart reports. Thank you for digging up great sources, Matt Walsh. Fucking nailing it right now.
kinds of excuses.
I want to also point out how he set up that entertainment, or the Hollywood Reporter, I think, clip, explaining that here's a clip explaining about how, because the Marvels flopped, the MCU is rescheduling everything and rethinking the entire universe. And then he plays the clip, and then that clip doesn't say anything about that. It just talks about how they're rescheduled shit. Like, he sets up these clips by explaining what they are, and then the clips do nothing to actually, like, it's just manipulation at this point.
Well ahead of time. Quote, as Disney's The Marvel goes down as the biggest flop in Marvel Cinematic Universe history, the movie's director, Nia DaCosta, has played her final three cards: race, gender, and sexuality. The Marvel's director lashed out at haters, calling them bigots in a recent interview with Variety.
Well, listen, is everybody who dislikes the Marvels a sexist bigot? No. However, do sexist bigots dislike the Marvels? Yes.
But the irony is that her movie's largest group of ticket buyers has turned out to be male and white. Nia DaCosta sounded off on the negative fan bill.
Okay, find me the quote where Nia DaCosta says all white males are sexist bigots. Find me that fucking quote.
Up to the Marvels during the interview. Quote, there are pockets where you go because you're like, I'm a super fan. I want to exist in the space of just adoration, which includes civilized critique. Then there are pockets that are really virulent and violent and racist and sexist and homophobic and all those awful things.
He keeps on playing this shit, and it's all like 100% true, and he acts like offended by it. It's like, Matt, if you're offended by this, look inside. Like, they're just spinning facts, dude.
And I choose the side of light. That's the part of fandom I'm attracted to.
Yeah, I remember that quote. That was fucking based.
So did you catch that? It is not only racist and somehow homophobic to dislike the Marvels.
When the fuck did she say that? Matt, she didn't fucking say it. What the hell? She just said racist. She just essentially said there's a toxic corner of the internet that hates this movie, and that is a fact. My God, the way you guys contort this shit, it's ridiculous.
It is also violent. Not paying $30 for 2 tickets to the Marvels this weekend is an act of violence.
The fuck? Like, when did she say that, Matt? When? My God, are you serious right now? Jesus Christ.
Choose the side of light, the director implores you. Choose goodness, choose love.
Yeah, how dare she say choose goodness. Well, she didn't say choose goodness and choose love, but even if she did, how dare she? Fucking bitch. How dare she support goodness and love? I'm against that shit. Fuck that. What argument is this, bro?
Choose to give her your money. Since the overturning of Roe
Again, not what she said, but okay.
v. Wade, the left has lost their minds. Leftism is their religion. Abortion is their official sacrament. Meanwhile, pro-life efforts,
You know what? Sure. Fuck it. Praise abortion.
which are now more important than ever, are booming. Despite the narrative, pro-lifers have not gone away. In fact, they're getting more and more active. As one of the largest pro-life organizations in the world, no one is in a better position than 40 Days for Life to end.
Oh, this is a commercial? A fucking commercial for pro-life shit? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm not going to cover this.
Now, the problem with blaming the movie's horrible performance on sexism and racism, one of the dozens of problems anyway,
Which is something you haven't provided any evidence for, Matt. All you provide evidence for is people pointing out that racists and sexists don't like the movie, which is true. That is very true, Matt.
is that, as it said in the article, by far the largest demo who went to see the film were men.
Okay, so Matt, this right here, are you trying to say that all white men are racist and sexist? Is that what you're saying? Because if so, fuck off.
And most of them were white men, presumably blind and deaf white men, but those details aren't recorded. So perhaps Nia DaCosta needs to take this up with all the women and racial minorities who arrogantly and violently declined to go see the movie in theaters. I mean, they're the ones who failed her. Or maybe...
What? What? Like, you know what? I've never done, like, a demographic breakdown of the movie, and I kind of don't care. But, like, what the fuck are you even talking about, Matt? Like, people need to, like... Women and people of color need to see the movie? Because, like, I don't even know where you're pulling this shit from. Because, like, that wasn't in her quote whatsoever. Her quote was literally just, they're toxic fucking people on the internet who are shitting on this movie, which is true.
Alternatively, she is the one who failed by failing to make a movie that anyone wants to see.
Well, I mean, let's face it, actors weren't able to promote it. That helps.
Yes, now I think maybe we're on to something here. So why did the movie actually flop? I think there are two reasons, both of which we've already alluded to. The first is that, for the most part, the truth is, nobody really wants to see female-led action movies.
Explain Wonder Woman. Explain the first Wonder Woman. Explain, well, I don't know. Like, maybe I shouldn't even be asking you to explain stuff because, you know, just people don't want to see female-led action movies. Like, I feel like you're just kind of, like, showing on yourself with that statement. Like, what? Like, so women can't be action stars because, women? Because vagina? Vagina means you can't be an action star, Matt? Is that your argument? Hunger Games. We all know Hunger Games was a massive box office flop, right? The first Captain Marvel, over $1 billion, flop, right? Yeah, nobody wants to see these movies, right?
People are not that interested in female action stars.
Source? You just gonna say shit like that? Oh, the Marvels flop. That means they should never ever make a female-led action movie ever, right? That's your argument? That's it? Seems pretty bad, because, I mean, how many action movies starring men have flopped, Matt? It seems like there's probably a lot of those. Does that mean the audience doesn't want action movies starring men? Because, I mean, if one flops, that means nobody wants to see that, right? That's your logic here.
Hollywood insists that we should be interested, but we just aren't. Female audiences are, it turns out, especially not interested in female action stars.
Source? You gonna give me a source on that one, Matt? A source? No? Okay.
Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. There are a few iconic female action heroes, like Sigourney Weaver as Ripley in the Alien films, and a couple of...
Well, I mean, with the exception of the second one, that's not actually an action star. She's it's a horror franchise. Now, the second one is definitely action horror. It's got horror vibes to it. But yeah, that's primarily a horror movie. And I'm sure, I don't even have to play the rest. He's going to bring up Sarah Connor, who I can point out is technically not the lead in any of those movies. And the first one is, again, a horror movie. But let's see, maybe he won't. Maybe he'll surprise me and not drop the Sarah Connor. But yeah, I don't know. These guys love to do their Ripley and Sarah Connor to prove they're not sexist, because there's two action stars they like. They're women. Proven a lot there.
Of others, but as a general principle, action movies are a man's domain.
Oh, they're a man's domain. Yeah, we can't have too many vaginas in that space. That's a man's space. That's a space for men to just hang out and do man things with other men. Just be manly men with each other, right? Can't have vaginas in there. That's gonna give you some fucking cooties. For sure. That seems like a good scientific explanation, Matt Walsh. Thank you.
They are for men, they are about men, and that's just the you could be sad about it. You can insist that it should be different, but it is what it is. And that's why.
Oh, it is what it is. Well, fuck. Who needs a source when, it is what it is? We're going to ignore box office numbers. We're going to ignore the fact that men have starred in action movies that have flopped. We're going to, ignore that women have starred in action movies that have been massive successes. We're going to ignore all that and just say it is what it is. Bitches don't be in action movies. Sound, Matt. Thank you.
Why, if you look at a list of the top 50 highest grossing action films of all time, maybe 2 of the top 50 were led by women. And one of them.
Oh, maybe 2 were led by women. Oh, well, I feel like that's very scientific and not just a reflection of the ratio of starring roles of men to women starring in action movies. Because, we all know men and women are starring in action movies at an equal ratio, right? 50% of all action movies star women, right? I'm certain that number is correct, because the only way his logic makes any sense is if that number is a 50-50 ratio. Then he might have an argument. Unfortunately, we all know that's full of shit. That's absolutely not the ratio. So, yeah. It's almost like there's just way more action movies that star men. And almost certainly way more action movies that star men that have flopped.
Was Captain Marvel, coming in at 19 on the list, which grossed about $1 billion. But that film was sandwiched in between Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War, both in the.
I brought up before, Ant-Man and the Wasp was sandwiched in the exact same spot. Ant-Man and the Wasp actually did some solid setting up for Avengers Endgame as well in the post-credit scene. So really, that movie was poised to really rake it in that Infinity War Endgame socket, except it only did around 650. So arguing that Captain Marvel made over $1 billion entirely because of that is just lying, because Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't get anywhere near that.
In the top 5, and it rode their coattails to box office glory. So Captain Marvel is kind of like the WNBA of superheroes. Her existence depends on the success of her male counterparts.
Wow. I don't know if that really requires a eloquent, well thought out rebuttal. And I think a better rebuttal to that is just, fuck you.
Although, in fairness, people did actually go to see Captain Marvel, but literally nobody in history has ever seen a WNBA game. In any case, the
fuck you. Fuck you, Matt Walsh.
Point is that audiences aren't generally interested in female action films.
Or there are a lot less female action films. Just throwing out there the little fact for you. Just this argument that because and that I want to stress, this is Matt's argument, because the Marvels, one movie, he hasn't referenced any other one. So one movie starring women in a comic book action movie flopped. That means all women-led action movies the audience doesn't care about and are destined to be flops. It's just not something worth shooting for. Going to ignore the action movies by women like Wonder Woman, like Captain Marvel, the first one. Honestly, we need more female-led action movies. But there have been financial successes. Hell, yeah, no, I brought up the Hunger Games franchise. That was a huge franchise, starring Jennifer Lawrence in an action role. Yes, there are plenty of successful action movies starring women. So using your same logic, actually there's a lot of money to be made in action movies starring women. So, hey. And I actually have more sources than you do. So, hey.
It's not because of sexism. given that female audiences are also uninterested. It's more that.
Yeah, it's almost as if like this movie was under promoted. And I do think it's interesting. I feel like this is kind of an offshoot of the video, but it's something I've thought about trying to figure out. Like, part of the reason this flopped, I felt, is because like Marvel used to feel like an event. An MCU release used to feel like an event. And with Marvel's, I'm getting the sense like, as much as like the quality I feel has been fairly consistent still throughout, it feels a lot less like an event. It doesn't feel like anything special. It's like, oh, another Marvel property's out. And that, I think, is hurting it. Not to mention the fact that it's going to be streaming in a couple weeks. Like, if you don't want to go to the theater and watch the Marvels, it's going to be streaming in like 2 or 3 weeks. So you don't even have to worry about it.
Men, by and large, they make more compelling, more convincing, more entertaining action heroes. That's not my opinion. I mean, it is my opinion, but it's not just my opinion. All of the objective evidence suggests that it is the opinion of almost all moviegoers, men and women alike, whether they put it so bluntly or not. Also, the audience for action movies is primarily male, especially superheroes. So like when an 8-year-old boy goes to see Spider-Man, he likes to imagine himself as the hero. No 8-year-old boy is running around the house with a bath towel made into a cape shouting, "I'm Captain Marvel." That's not happening.
Well, maybe, number one, yeah, that probably is happening. Number two, Captain Marvel, at least the Carol Danvers version of Captain Marvel, hasn't been around as long as, like, let's say Superman or Batman. Like, that version was introduced in 2012. And I want to stress, that was by far the most financially successful version of the character Marvel had ever done, which is why they did the movie bit and just launched her as Captain Marvel instead of doing Marvel movies or anything like that. That was a huge hit in the comic books. And honestly, the box office, too. The Marvels, yeah, obviously it's not. But, like, the Captain Marvel movie did really well.
Happening. Hollywood has tried to turn the action genre into a woman's domain. They've tried to feminize it.
Really? Really? Because there's a couple more movies? Because there's a couple more action movies starring women? They've tried to feminize it? Really? 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 How many times can I say really? Like, yes. Yes. Movies star white men less often. I want to stress less often. They still predominantly star white men. Like, by a massive margin. Like, it used to be like 99% of all movies starred white men. Now it's like 90 to 95%. It's not that huge of a deal. Like, and if you can't handle it, if you're like Matt Walsh and have to whine about it and can't handle the fact that maybe occasionally somebody who isn't a white man might occasionally get an opportunity to star in a movie, if you can't handle that, that's a you problem, and you need to grow the fuck up.
Like, they tried to feminize everything, but the social engineering just hasn't taken hold, and it probably.
Social engineering. This is some more right-wing conspiracy nut job shit here. Social engineering. What? The social engineering as to, like, assuming that, like, men and women are equal? Is that the social engineering you're talking about? Because I wouldn't really call that social engineering, because that's just a fact. Like, they are. In all the ways that matter, they are. And if the goal is to maybe make it so society sees things like that, then I don't have an issue. That sounds like something we should probably push towards.
Never will. And second, as I've already covered, female-led or not, the superhero genre it has long since grown stale. Now it is moldy and decomposing on the counter.
You mean like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that just made $800 million earlier this year? Yeah, what a fucking bomb, right? Yeah. Dead genre.
There's just a limit, right, to how long you can convince the audience to come back and watch the same story over and over again. It turns out that.
Well, I mean, there's only like so many stories in actual fiction. There's like 5 stories in fiction if you break them all down properly. It's all in the execution. How well do they do it? And, like, I don't even think Matt Walsh saw the Marvels. Like, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the Marvels. So, hopefully do a better job next time.
The limit is about 20 years. That's the limit. Now, for me, it was like 20 minutes. I saw 20 minutes of one superhero movie. I said, yeah, I kind of get it. Like, I get it. It's fine. I get it. I understand. I understand superhero movies. I understand what you're doing. I get it. I don't need to.
He was probably upset because it presented a woman as equal to a man, and he got, like, his ego just got, like, really fragile, and he just couldn't handle it, and he wet himself and cried for the rest of the runtime of the movie. And then when it was asked, hey, where'd you run off to during the movie, he was just like, oh, I just wasn't digging it. I had to do manly stuff.
Rewatch it a million times. I don't need to spend 2 decades of my life watching this same thing over and over and over again. But a lot of audiences, apparently, they needed to do that. But even those audiences are the ones that have a much greater tolerance for repetition, even they have grown tired of it. I would say that their tolerance for repetition is too great, but at least now most of them seem to agree that if Marvel wants us to watch their movies, they need to start making actual movies, rather than, as Martin Scorsese would say, amusement park rides that go around in circles forever, never ending, never saying anything, never bothering to tell.
I would hope if Martin Scorsese knew Matt Walsh used his words, he would be, like, deeply offended. Just, ugh. And, like, obviously, like, he hasn't seen... Like, I would have to assume if he's going to use Martin Scorsese's words, he hasn't seen Killers of the Flower Moon. A movie that seems, like, designed to make you hate white people. Like, really. Like, almost exclusively all the white men in that are just vile pieces of shit.
A story. Or they can keep on their current track and continue losing money, which is perfectly fine with me. Either way, it's not just me saying, but all of America apparently saying that The Marvels is today canceled.
Oh, wait, I thought he was against cancel culture. Matt, you're against cancel culture. How dare you cancel The Marvels? You have to be against that. That sounds like you're telling your audience, guys, this movie's going to get canceled unless you go out and support it. No. Like, the fact is, they felt the need to go out and, like, Matt Walsh felt the need to make a fucking video on this. Matt Walsh has 3 million YouTube subscribers. God damn it, fuck him. But anyways, he felt the need to make a fucking video about the Marvels, which, you know, he's not a movie guy at all, clearly by watching that. But he felt the need because, hey, this movie, this movie is obviously part of the culture war because it has too many fucking vaginas in it. Right, that's it. Like, that's all it takes to trigger these guys anymore. They're such fucking snowflakes, I swear to fucking God. It's pretty fucking pathetic. But anyways, there's Matt Walsh. Haven't covered him in a while, but piece of shit. Just absolute fucking piece of shit in every level. Despise him.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.